Japanese Americans, generally speaking, tend to sort of move on, unfortunately, don't really keep touch culturally. So I've grown up, very westernized or American. Yeah, but I still have a lot of Japanese values, I feel, especially when it comes to aesthetics.
Right. In what way? Very clean lines or
Yeah, very clean. Less is more. I like. I don't like busyness. I don't like a lot of patterns. And I think this has also helped shape me as a designer, right? To create the things that we create now.
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where to From Here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe. Welcome to today's episode of Where to From Here. My name is Renae Leith-Manos. This is a global podcast where we dive deep into the world of luxury hotels. Today we go to Bangkok to speak to a special guest, American Clint Nagata, who conceptualizes and designs some of the world's most spectacular and luxurious hotels. Nagata grew up in Honolulu, so is half American but is also half Japanese. And some of his awesome and award winning hotel creations are actually in Japan. Nagata founded the architectural firm Blink some 18 years ago in 2006, and the studio is known for producing sensitively designed hotels, such as the six Senses Kyoto, Fullerton Hotel, Ocean Park in Hong Kong, the Regent Phu Quoc in Vietnam, JW Marriott Khao Lak, and Roku, which is also in Kyoto, which is the debut property of Hilton's luxurious LXR Hotel and Resort brand, and that was in 2018. Within his design process, Nagata leaves no space untouched, I've read, and he highlights an area that is often overlooked within his designs, but a vital area, which is in crafting the arrival sequence. So I'm actually excited to talk to him about this, having, enjoyed so many arrival sequences in my work as a hotel reviewer. Welcome to the show, Clint.
Thank you. It's great to be here today.
It's wonderful to connect with you. Now, I want to ask you, what is the most challenging part of designing a new five-star hotel or resort?
I think the beginning of every project is always challenging because as a designer, you really have to understand the audience and your client, and that takes. And I always tell our designers that takes a lot of understanding on how to listen. I think designers oftentimes, have their own ideas, but it's really essential to listen to the owner, also listen to the brand, right, and really listen to the place. Last of all, because you want to create something that resonates through time. And so that beginning part is really critical that you pay a lot of attention to listening, what the goals are for the owner, for the operator, for the brand, as well as, what the guests expect as well. So that's always the toughest part for us.
And in most of the jobs that you do when you're building a new hotel, is everything in place in terms of the owner's obviously in place, but the brand, is it all there and then you're working together? Or are there times when someone owns a block of land or a building, says, turn this into a hotel, then I'll go and find a brand? How does that process normally work?
It comes in various shapes and forms. Most of the time, we start with the operator already on board, but sometimes we do start with the owner only directly. And I think that in that case, the owner has found us or heard about us and wanted to get us started without the brand on board yet. So it really varies, and can't really say if it's in a country specific, but we do tend to work with a lot of high net worth individuals or families, and maybe that's why some processes start that way.
Yeah, interesting. I bet some of them are difficult and some of them are lovely.
They're all great.
You know what to say. And then talk us through the process. So you said that the beginning is the toughest. Once you've, got over that, how does it work and how long is a project normally?
Our projects, I think post pandemic, the project timeline is reduced. I think everyone's in a rush, but generally speaking, they take about 2 to 4, 5 years sometimes. And the process starts by doing a really deep dive into the location. We try to create spaces that resonate with the place. And for us, it's a lot about interpretation of a place, not copying. We don't want to be sort of not for lack of respect, but Disney-esque. We don't want to copy a place, but want to be inspired by a place, and put our own spin on it, but also a look to understand the brand and how they would view that place as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And where does your inspiration come from? I mean, you've done a lot of hotels. I mean, sometimes it must sort of the temptation to be cookie cutter because you know how to do things, you know how it works. How do you get that inspiration to make everything so different?
It varies, and I think I'll go back to the first thing I said about listening to our owners. I met an Indian owner recently. We've become good friends, and it started out by me listening to how he thought the project could be like. And this is, I think for me, this is where I really feel passionate about creating something not for me, but for someone else or others as well. But every time we start a project, it really means that we need to explore a lot about that perfect location. So, thankfully, we travel. I get to travel a lot. So through my travels, I discover new things, and it's through this discovery process that we incorporate new ideas into our projects.
How fantastic. And tell us about your very first hotel that you built.
The first one that I can remember, I'm sure there are more before that. I had worked at a firm in Hawaii prior to coming here, but when I came here, I was working on a luxury resort in Sanya in China at the time. The owner
Wow.
back then was one of the most wealthiest uh, men in China. He wanted to build a seaside resort, but he wanted to do it in a very traditional style. And it's not something that I normally do, traditional architecture. But we embraced it, we modernized it a bit, and it turned out quite well. I think it's still one of the most popular resorts in Sanya today.
Well, how many years ago was that?
Like 18 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Quite a while.
Right. And what is it about Asia that's held you there so long?
It's quite odd because Hawaii, as you know, is quite an isolated place. But I remember as far as when I was a kid growing up, I'd always I felt restless and I felt like I had to travel and go places. By chance, I got a job at WTG, and I learned everything from there. But what I did not expect was I would have turned my architectural career into a career designing luxury resorts.
Wow. And why Bangkok?
Bangkok to me is a perfect place of sort of everything and nothing at the same time. It's got so many things going for it. I've learned to deal with traffic throughout the years, but I love the vibrancy of the city. I've always been admirable about the design talent that lives here or calls Bangkok its home. And I just felt like I've always wanted to be part of this community.
Yeah, how fantastic. I mean, I absolutely love it. And of course, Bangkok is home to the number one hotel in the world right now, which is Capella Bangkok. So,
Right.
it's really making its market. And I sort of said about a year ago on this program, when I've spent quite a lot of time there, I was reviewing actually Capella and Siam and some other hotels, that I felt that it was almost taking on Singapore as the luxury leader in both or all hotels, bars, and restaurants, because the design and the quality, it's just gone up so much in the last sort of 2 to 3 years. Would you agree with that?
It has, it has. In fact, I think the Ritz-Carlton and Andaz open, I think later this year, so that's exciting. And I guess for Tonga, no, it's not, but I'm always a fan of great design, so I'm sure I'll go visit it as soon as it opens. But I love the fact that, like you said, there's always new, wonderful restaurant and bars opening here. It's hard. Hardest thing is deciding where to go every weekend. That's the tough decision there.
It's a nice problem to have. But I also find that because I was living in Jakarta in Indonesia up until about a year ago. And I think one of the big things for me about Thailand is the local food is just so delicious, clean, healthy, it's so diverse. Whereas, a lot of other Asian countries, you can't quite say that in the same way that you can about Thailand. So you can go from the most upscale, European restaurant chain that's come in there, right down to street food, which is equally as exciting, different, and tasty.
Exactly. A lot of choices here, yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And how have hotel designs changed, or perhaps the demands from owners and brands changed for you as a hotel designer in more recent years?
Well, I think definitely, through, social media, I think as consumers, our ideas of what is the ideal hotel has definitely been increased in terms of expecting more, because we're just flooded always with so much wonderful images of resorts in the Maldives or this amazing city destination that it's really raised, I think, expectations as guests, and it makes it even challenging, much more challenging for designers, of course, to create these places. So sort of to keep up with the Joneses, I think has just sort of reached a new level, right? Just because there's so much to do, so many wonderful places opening nowadays that it's just, uh, it's really, for the traveler's benefit, right?
Oh, absolutely. And where would you say, because you're sitting there and I'm sure you've got more luxury hotel knowledge than anyone, particularly in Asia right now, where are most of the new hotels being built at this time?
I in Japan, Japan, I think is an interesting market because for the longest time, Japan did not have that international luxury hotels, and so there's a really big vacuum for that. So you've seen some wonderful projects opening, like Janu just opened in Tokyo, right? We just opened Six Senses, also in Kyoto. Uh,
Say on you just mentioned Janu. Was that yours? Was it?
no, that was Jean Michel Deniston. Look,
Yeah, that's a sister to the Aman properties, isn't it? That brand.
right, it's the affordable version, as I call it.
Is it though?
Well, I try to stay there, but I think it's about 3,000 a night, so it's a little past my, working budget.
So $3,000 a night is the affordable sister property brand to Amma. Because I know that I wrote about them and I haven't even visited yet. The fact that everything was share tables and wellness now really sort of setting this paradigm, which is an interesting concept in itself within hotel design.
Yeah, I think, there's always exciting trends, particularly with wellness,
Yeah.
as technology, as we embrace technology, it just gets more interesting.
Mm. And keep going. Sorry, I interrupted you about all the openings in Japan.
Yeah, there's also a banyan tree in Kyoto that opened. We're working on a banyan tree elsewhere in Japan, and we're looking at, I think, about 2 or 3 other projects, currently, so we're quite busy. So, obviously, this pipeline will open in the next 2 to 3 years. So, I think that's an exciting market at the moment, Japan.
Well, Australians are obsessed with Japan. I mean, and also, I mean, everyone is. It's having this big moment. And someone on the show recently said it's potentially a geopolitical issue because if things change in that arena politically, we may not be able to access it. So people are going, gosh, we've got to go now. I think there's potentially a little bit of that going on, but it's definitely having its moment right now as a luxury tourist destination. But even generally, the numbers are showing.
Absolutely. I mean, I think also the yen, the value of the yen has also helped, increase interest in Japan as well.
Yes. Yes. And where are you from in Japan, your family?
I just found this out, last year. Before that, for the rest of my life, I had no idea. I asked my father, he didn't know. But we're from Kumamoto, actually, down south,
Have you been?
and I haven't been. I'm not sure if we still have family there. We've never. Japanese Americans, generally speaking, tend to sort of move on, sort of unfortunately don't really keep touch culturally. So I've grown up, very westernized, very American. Yeah, but I still have a lot of Japanese values, I feel, especially when it comes to aesthetics.
Right. In what way? Very clean lines or
Yeah, very clean. Sort of less is more. I like. I don't like busyness. I don't like a lot of patterns. And I think this has also helped shape me as a designer, right? To create the things that we create now.
and what I see in hotels that don't have a lot of patterns is they really do stand the test of time because, patterns come and go and date properties, right?
Exactly.
So if you're doing a lot of clean lines and sort of, might I say, sort of more simplistic, less cluttered designs, how then from that palette do you create a hotel's unique signature?
Through a lot of research, we really make it the point to research about a place. The Six Senses in Kyoto, it's inspired by the location, which is right across the street from a temple built in the Heian period. So that inspiration or that period of it really drove the inspiration for the project. So it's looking for little nuances like this that really help to tell the story. I think nowadays guests expect to be able to understand more about a place when they visit it. So I think it's important to tell the story correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how does sustainability fit into the mix, and how focused are owners and brands on that issue now?
Yeah, sustainability, post pandemic has always been on the forefront of most owners and operators as well. Thankfully, we work with brands like Six Senses, which really put that mantra front, forward, and center. So it's not.
They were really the leader, weren't they? They were the leader within the luxury hotel space.
Yeah, they are. And, it has to do with also, for an interior design perspective, selecting materials that are, not filled with chemicals and that sort of thing. It can be challenging, but, definitely, I think the intent is that guests feel much better when they stay at these places. So that's definitely a idea we adapt very well in terms of being more sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there are a lot of hotel designers. I've only had one other on the show in 3 years. Are there a lot of you around? Because I don't find all that many.
There's a bunch of us. There's some really good ones in Asia, which is what inspired me to move here.
Right.
So there, hotel designers obviously tend to specialize only in hotels, although a lot of us have now been shifting more towards branded residential, which is related to hotels. So that's an easy migration in that direction. But there's
On, in other words, hotels putting apartment buildings that are sold separately within the complex, like Aman have done it in New York, for example.
Right, right. Ahmad has done it. We're doing Six Senses branded residences in two locations. That's exciting. It because that's then you also have to embrace the idea of a home, not
Right.
not a hotel. So there are different challenges there when you design a home, not a hotel.
Yeah, and that was really brought on or brought to the forefront by COVID, right? Because people suddenly were traveling with their families, they're traveling for much longer times, and felt that having a residence was safer and offered them a lot more room, which facilitated them spending longer times in their hotel room, and not having to leave, but still having the services of these incredible luxury brands at their doorstep.
Yeah, and it just shows the power of brands. That you can charge a premium for a brand such as a Six Senses or Ritz Carlton um, because that brand then delivers a brand promise, which is mostly about service, right? So I would buy one, if I could.
Likewise, if we get to stay in them, I'm happy with that arrangement.
Exactly.
And how long is it for most hotels before they need an upgrade? I mean, how long can a hotel last from when it's created? And how much does the location have to do with that issue?
Yeah, generally hotels, the renovation cycle is about 7 to 10 years, and that has a lot to do with also what was implemented in the beginning. And to your point about, the about places or spaces that are void or don't have a lot of color and patterns, they do date more quickly. So I think those kinds of hotels you'll see need to refresh themselves more often, as
Mm.
opposed to something more timeless like an Aman. You can get away with not renovating for maybe 10 to 12 years instead.
So, Clint, have you ever designed an Aman hotel?
We did a renovation or an addition to the Amanoi in Vietnam. We did 2 spa villas, architecture and interior. So that was a good project, small, very short time frame. I think it took 5 months from design to opening, which is very unheard of.
How many rooms? I mean, I know you were adapting it, you weren't building from scratch, but
I don't know. I think overall, I think there's about 40 rooms or less.
yeah, it's a smaller one, but still.
Beautiful place.
Um, yeah. And where do you like to travel to? And is it in luxury? And do you find yourself lying awake at night, so to speak, in a hotel taking notes for your next design projects?
the tagline for our company is "We are explorers," and I think that really says a lot about our firm. I enjoy traveling to places that I've never been to before, right? Earlier this year, we went to Azerbaijan. We have a new project in Baku. That was exciting. I had no idea what that was about. The project sits on the Caspian Sea. So, there's a lot of history there. So I always enjoy going to new places to learn about new cultures and also most of all to meet people. I'm very um, inspired by meeting different people, not just in our industry, but just from that place, right?
Yes. And how long do you normally spend relocating to a location when you're designing a hotel?
We try to spend as much time as possible, but given all things considered, it may only be 2, 3 days at the most. But we do try to go back regularly. So throughout the course of the project, maybe 20 or so times.
Hmm. Wow. You must be on and off planes nonstop.
I am. Actually, I number my trips, and this year, at the end of the year, I'll have taken 40 trips. So I that allows me to be frequent flyers on gold membership on I don't know 3 or 4 different airline platforms. So I do travel a lot.
Wow. And do you have a family? Like it must be tricky or even running an office with that much travel.
I have a fiance here back in Bangkok, and we have a little dog. So he's family. But I also have my Blink family. We're quite close, so I try to spend as much time with them as possible as well.
Yeah, yeah. And what are you working on right now in terms of hotel design and where are the hotels?
We're quite fortunate. We've had some great projects, not just here in Asia. Um, we have projects in Europe as well. We have 2 projects in France. That's exciting. My French is still very
Oh.
horrible. No, it's outside. It's in Loire Valley. One is in Loire Valley, and one is in Normandy. So 2 different locations. Great country, great wine. I love to drink wine. And we have projects throughout the Middle East, and hopefully something down in Fiji near your neck of the woods.
Have you ever done anything in Australia?
We were working on something in Wirra, which was fun.
The
Our
winery.
stop, yeah, yeah,
Ah, okay.
but never got as far as we liked it to have gotten. But that was a great project.
And you came to Australia?
I did, yeah. In fact, I was just there for Global Hospitality Talk last month.
Oh,
It's
fantastic. How, you like Australia?
I do. It's I can see why Australians love nature. I mean, it's you're just surrounded by it. There's some great architecture as well, particularly on the residential side. Yeah, it's a very and the food's obviously fantastic as well. So a lot of reasons to keep going back there.
No, absolutely. And look, you've built so many hotels and you've really achieved so much. What has been your greatest achievement in your design business so far?
Yeah, I'm always proud of the work that we open. The 2 latest ones are a Banyan Tree Dubai, and the Six Senses in Kyoto. Um, and it's sort of very difficult for me to pick a favorite. It's like picking a favorite kid. You love all your kids for different reasons. So, and for me, it's more about connecting with my clients and creating something that they're happy with. And for me, that to see them and to see their happiness when the hotel opens makes me happy. So fortunately, we've got quite a lot of happy clients, but it's very difficult to pick a favorite kid. They're all my babies. They're all our babies.
Of course. And did they give you sort of almost open slather in Dubai? I'm only asking because the creativity coming out of there, not only in luxury hotels, but just in architecture generally, is pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, I think Dubai or Middle East really has been. at the forefront recently in terms of driving or pushing the creative boundaries. We have 3 projects that are really out there. When they open in the next 3 years, I think you'll be quite shocked at what the future of hospitality looks like.
Wow. And do you think the Middle East is where the future of hospitality is?
It is at the moment. I think although there are other great places in the world that still have as much history and charm. I think the fascinating thing about Middle East is that places like Saudi Arabia, they've had so much history that there's so much to learn from and so much to explore. In that
Yeah.
sense, there's so much to share or to showcase the place, right? And that exposure to that culture or history has not been there in the past. So it's a relatively new market for all of us, and I think that what makes it quite attractive at the moment.
Yeah, and exciting. Absolutely. It's wonderful to speak with you. And before you go, we ask all of our guests where to from here. And you can talk about what you're doing today, your next holiday. So, where to from here?
Where to from here? I'm headed to the US, back to the US next month in a few weeks. I go to Philadelphia first. My son is studying at UPenn, so I'll see him there. Uh, he's studying robotic engineering, which is the right side of the left side of the brain, not the right side.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's a he got his interest in robotics by playing Legos, which is quite fascinating. And then I go to New York. It is. I played Legos when I grew up, but we didn't have motors, right? We had everything was just sort of pieced together. But yeah, he enjoyed.
I have to, I have to share this with you that I do luxury hotel consulting. And as part of my education, because I have ongoing education, because I go into luxury hotels and really help them with staff retention and any issues, butler programs, that kind of thing. And one thing that I've been taught to do is use Lego
Oh, really?
because it fast tracks people's psyche. Because if you say, particularly in an Asian culture, are you happy in your job? Can we talk about the issues? Which is what you might say in a Western boardroom. If you say that, as I know, in Southeast Asia, generally people shut down. Whereas if you put Lego in the middle and say, you've got 5 minutes to make a creation that explains your job, the negatives and positives, you'd be mind blown at what they come out with. It's like basically, 14 weeks of therapy in half an hour.
Wow, that's interesting. I should try that with our staff.
And maybe your son, I wonder when he go. It's a bit of a trick question.
Yeah.
How fantastic. And New York? What are you doing in New York?
I'm there for 2 things, another conference, Global Hospitality Talk Conference, and then the Gold Key Awards. We're shortlisted for 4 awards this year, so I'm there for that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, look, it really is a great honor to speak with you. You're such a busy man. You're such a successful man. And you've built so many, amazing hotels. I really appreciate your time and your inspiration.
Thank you, Renee. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Clint. Safe travels.
All right. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe here and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular travel updates. You can also hear our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.